Good afternoon. Hello, everyone. Whether you're joining us live or you're watching the replay, we're so excited to have you today at Sustainable Fairfield's Green Wheels Seminar Series. So welcome to all of you. My name is Daphne Dixon, and I am one of 15 members of Sustainable Fairfield. And we are in the middle of our Green Wheels Expo. So we are holding Green Wheels Expo in support of National Drive Electric Week. And we started off Green Wheels Expo on Saturday with an interview with Jay Leno that was done by one of our amazing task force members, Jim Motivale. So it was a great interview. If you want to listen to it, you can listen and watch it on sustainablefairfield.org. On Sunday, we partnered with the Electric Vehicle Club of Connecticut, and we had a fantastic electric vehicle car parade. It started in Westport and it went all the way to Fairfield. We had 30 EVs. It was just fantastic. And we just had so much fun, and there was people cheering along the way, of course, wearing masks, but it was just amazing. And then on Monday, we kicked off our virtual showcase. So if you want to see all the vehicles that you can purchase in Connecticut, the EVs that you can actually purchase in our state, go to sustainablefairfield.org and you can view our virtual EV showcase. Also on Monday, we kicked off our Green Wheels webinar series, and we talked about how is Connecticut going to reach its goal of 125,000 EVs by 2025. So that's not very far away. How are we going to do that? So we had the great privilege and pleasure of listening to Tracy Babbage from Connecticut Deep. We heard from Anthony Chirolis about the Cheaper program. And then we had Josh Kirstenbaum from Maritime Chevy. And you know what he told us? He said that their dealership is getting 30 EVs on their lot this fall. So if you want an EV, go to Maritime Chevy and they are going to have 30 for you to choose from. And then yesterday, it was great to have Doug Holcomb of Greater Bridgeport Transit. He's the CEO, and he talked all about the Bridgeport electric transit buses. That there's 2 that are there. They're going to be hitting the streets. Electric transit buses. Imagine that. They're here and more are coming. So that was amazing to have him join us. Now you can watch replays of both of these webinars on sustainablefairfield.org if you'd like to learn more about this. Now on Thursday, we're going to be really focusing on municipal fleets, and we'll be providing a tool for municipalities to use to analyze their fleets and really helping them take their first step on going EV. So that's going to be tomorrow at 1 o'clock. And then on Friday, we actually have a virtual site visit at White Plains School District with a Lion Electric school bus to go behind the scenes and see how it works. So that's going to be a great day too. But we are so excited to have Joe Gwin of Motiv Power Systems with us here today to talk about how can businesses go electric. Now, one of the reasons why that's so important, as most of you probably know, that Connecticut has signed on to a memorandum of understanding that really commits us to 30% of our medium and heavy duty trucks and buses electrified by 2030. Well, how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to do that because there are people like Joe Gwin who are going to show us how to do it. So I would like to turn the microphone and then give the stage up to Joe Gwin of Motiv Power Systems, and he's going to tell us more about the great company he works for, the great work that they do, and the kind of businesses and fleets that they help to support Go EV. Thank you so much for joining us, Joe.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Daphne. And thank you for everyone who's attending today. I see some familiar faces and some I haven't seen before. So I guess, since there's some people here who haven't had an introduction to Motiv, I'll give you a brief rundown of what we do. We are a Ford medium duty EQVM, which means we are a qualified vehicle modifier in that space. So we get Ford E450, F53, and F59 chassis, and we make them electric so that someone can put a body on it and make it fully, electric vehicle that often looks just like a conventional vehicle that you've always seen. I think what we're going to focus on today, though, is not the buses. We do school buses, we do shuttle buses, but we do delivery trucks as well. And these delivery trucks are seeing, everyone knows the delivery space is kind of, it's exploding right now with the whole work from home being more Amazon, more FedEx deliveries, just a lot more delivery and freight traffic in general. So that's, I think, one of the number ways we can clean up our communities, clean up our emissions. I'm going to share my screen just to give you guys a picture of what we're talking about here. Can everyone see this?
Yes.
Okay. So here's an example of an F59 step van we do. And, it looks like a conventional vehicle. It's got, the same body people are used to. And that's because, people don't want to have to, reconfigure their loads for the rear with some new odd vehicle. So we found a way to make the same vehicle they've always had electric. And it's a great solution because we're using everything is an off-the-shelf component. We're not assembling battery packs by hand. We're not, making bodies or chassis. These are all these existing supply chains that have existed for some time. The batteries are from BMW, and as I said, the chassis from Ford. Body here is a Utilimaster body. We can also use other bodies. So Aramark is one of our large linen delivery fleets. Bimbo Bakeries, they are another one of our very large fleets. They have several vehicles on the road. I mean, most of these started with one or two, but we're starting to see orders of, dozens at a time now. And it's really good for this kind of an application because you've got planned routes, you know where you're going every morning. There's no range anxiety and that sort of thing. And then it just makes adopting an electric vehicle that much easier. We've built several of these for the U.S. Postal Service, and they're a happy customer. And Ameripride, that's another linen delivery fleet. What I don't have a picture of here is a FedEx build where we've deployed one, but we've also got several in the works where I've got in Ohio, someone applied for VW funding for 5 of these. We've got one on order in New York, and a couple more we're waiting to see orders come in on. And I want to see more in Connecticut and elsewhere in the Northeast. And so I want to spend some time talking about that because I think it's some lower hanging fruit and some ways we can really make an impact in our local communities. So we've had a lot of conversations with all these different companies, and a lot of times decisions are made at the corporate level on, what kind of vehicles are going to be purchased. But with FedEx Ground, it's a little bit different in that they operate with independent operators or contractors who the building is owned by FedEx, but at that FedEx building, there could be 12 different contractors all working. And they are the ones who buy the vehicles. So they make all the purchasing decisions. With that being the case, those are the people we need to reach out to. The difficult thing is sometimes it's hard to know who those people are. And that's where I think, in our local areas, we can figure that out. I found out who a contractor was by me because I knew there was a FedEx contractor at that location, and I just went in there one day and started talking to people, got the name of a guy. We had a demo show. I showed him a vehicle, and now he's ordering one. I think it's an education thing that most of these people just don't know that there's an electric truck that will meet their needs, and actually meet their needs more now than ever. They are reporting that routes are getting shorter because deliveries are becoming more frequent per square mile. So whereas maybe a truck was going on a more spread out area to unload all its products, now it's a much smaller area unloading more products per door. So most of the average routes I hear are something like 50, 60 miles. So the big question, and this is something we try to figure out at Motiv, is how do we get in contact with these contractors? We've a lot of times it's not public information who they are. I guess as far as like, you can't Google it and look up contractor for FedEx and just find a whole bunch of results in your area. That even FedEx corporate, who we're talking with about some other larger initiatives, they won't share who the names of these contractors are. So you really got to just do the work and get out there and figure it out. Now there is public information in each state. There's usually DOT information that is publicly available where you can figure out how to, where certain vehicles are registered and, vehicle types. So I've done a little digging there to see, where looking for VW funding to VW fund projects. Usually you need a 2009 or older diesel vehicle that's in the class 4 through 6 range that these step vans would be in, and you can kind of page through all of the DOT listings, but you're just going to see names of companies and not quite know if they're the right ones or not. And so I think that on a local level, it's really just about knocking on doors or talking to Ford dealers who sell to these people and seeing if that Ford dealer can tell you who some of their customers might be. It's a little bit of a challenge sometimes getting them, but if there's a sale in it for them, because Motiv does not sell vehicles direct. We sell through the dealer. So a lot of times this customer can buy the same vehicle that's electric from the same dealer they've always purchased trucks from. So a lot of dealers, like to hear that. They're more willing to share some information on their customers that way. But a lot of you may know, may have passed a FedEx depot, on your way to work, or there's one by your house and it's there. And you can sometimes get the name of the contractor off the truck even. So there's a lot of different ways to go about it, and I'd welcome some input, honestly, if people know certain ways to get a hold of these people. But I did have a road show planned for the East Coast where we were going to bring a truck out, and we were going to show it to a lot of different customers. But with COVID, and kind of a resurgence there, I think we've kind of put that one to rest. We're not going to truck something out here just to find out, early November is when we had it slated for, just to find out, that people don't want to attend. I think a virtual event will be a lot more worthwhile. So, as I get contacts, and I've got some contacts in New York, they were going to host a virtual show for all the FedEx drivers, and contractors. So, any way you can find FedEx contractors or any ideas you have, I'd welcome you to share those with me and Daphne, and maybe we can find a way to make a huge difference in our communities, because it really is just an education thing. And I guess I won't say just FedEx. There's also Amazon. Even some of these linen delivery fleets are not totally controlled by their corporate headquarter, and they do make some of their own purchasing decisions. Another one we've worked with is called Alsco. UniFirst is another one that's big in the Northeast. So there are a lot of these medium duty fleets that do a lot of environmental damage just by running low and slow around our neighborhoods that we could look at replacing. Some other ones Daphne and I talked about are like the Peapods of the world, and some of these like grocery stores that have delivery trucks. Now, sometimes those are corporate decisions, so it's a little harder, but I can tell you for sure the FedEx ones are, easy to approach guys if you can get the right, contact and show them the vehicle and show them 80% savings on maintenance and show them, that you're going to save 60% on, fuel. There's even better, some other advantages that I talk about sometimes with them is there's better traction, because there's even loading at all 4 corners when you're unloaded even, because the way the batteries are loaded on the chassis. You've got less brake wear, you've got no, you don't have to worry about oil changes, or they drive these things into a building and load them a lot of the time. So you don't have to worry about breathing all those fumes. It's a lot better for the workers. The FedEx ground contractor model could be, within the next 5 to 10 years, I think it could all go electric. Anything that's not, especially in more urban or suburban settings. I mean, the ranges are there. It meets requirements. We just have to reach these people who are a little bit more difficult, and it's going to take, a lot of groundwork in our local communities. I think that's what I wanted to kind of give everyone information about, and where I think we can have a big impact. So if I guess I'll open it up to questions, because we've got some extra time here, and any input that you have that you think might help in this cause.
So thank you so much, Joe. I mean, I think we're all seeing these delivery trucks more and more on our streets, and driving up and down, and smelling those fumes, and thinking, well, gosh, there's probably a better way. Do you know of any delivery fleets that are currently operating in Connecticut?
So I've had, and actually you put me in contact with them, Daphne. I had some conversation with Nestle. They have an interest. It seemed like they wanted to go with New York first, because some of the incentives that are currently available in New York. I know VW funding is going to soon be announced in Connecticut. So I'm not sure what it's going to look like. So I haven't reached out to them yet to say what it is, because I don't know what it is until the day it's launched. I know about what it's going to be, and we've had those conversations, but until it comes out, I won't be able to talk about it with them. And I guess we do have a couple buses in Connecticut, but no delivery trucks yet. But I think it'll happen soon. We've got a couple, as I mentioned, in New York that are going to deliver probably early next year, and with Bimbo Bakeries and FedEx as well.
Okay.
And Bimbo Bakeries is starting to put these all over the country. They also have some going to Pennsylvania, and it's only a matter of time until there's something in Connecticut.
Okay. I think if you'd like to stop sharing your screen, you can, or you can put it back up, or whatever you'd like. Well, I think the cost savings, so you talked a little bit about cost savings. What is the payback? Is it 3 years? Is it 10 years? Is it 5 years?
So it depends on your use case, and the more you use it, the faster it's going to pay for itself. So what's another great thing about FedEx is they operate 7 days a week a lot of the time. So on a 50-mile route, I actually did a cost analysis for a guy who was running a 50-mile route 7 days a week, and even without incentives and without grants, it would pay for itself in 5 years. With the grant he's getting, it's under 2 years. It's, because the funding in New York is probably some of the most attractive in the country right now, as long as you have that scrap 2009 and older diesel, and he had one, thankfully. So, but we, with the scrap vehicle, he was under a 2-year payback.
That's fantastic. Do you think that most of these fleet managers, do you think they know about the memorandum of understanding, and that Connecticut, along with the 14 other states, are really committed to this 30%?
Nope. And I don't think a lot of them have time to take lunch, let alone their business is so busy right now that's kind of the vibe I get. And something I help them out with is I'm like, well, you won't have to stop for fuel anymore. So there's a time savings in that, because you're already parking the vehicle at the depot. All you gotta do is plug it in and walk away.
We do have a question in chat from one of our Sustainable Fairfield Task Force members, Sean O'Sullivan. The price difference between regular ice and
so
Thanks,
it's coming down fast. It's a good question. It's what I share with you today may not be true in a year from now. And it was a lot higher last year. But I'd say, you know, with the BMW batteries in our system that we put on, we're just really the software and programming. But our system with the batteries adds about $100,000 of cost. That's kind of a rough estimate of, you know, on top of what you would normally pay for one of these vehicles. The vehicles are normally about $75,000 roughly as a, you know, gas or diesel version. But, you know, our all-in price is about $175,000 for this. It is actually pretty economical if you look across all of our product lines. It's our largest class vehicle and it's our most affordable vehicle. So, and that's due to, you know, the pretty, well, we do a more quantity in this vehicle. We also have the chassis or a strip chassis from Ford that is a little more cost effective. You know, I think you've also got like the Utilimaster body. I want to say it's just as cost effective, if not more than like a box truck type design. So you can fit more space, walk in. There's also benefits to people not using this type of truck if they're typically using a box truck. These you can get them for a lower price, and in the cold winters, you don't have to get out of the vehicle and walk around to the back. You can walk straight into the back from the cab. So that's actually a huge efficiency gain, as well as you know, more packages can be dropped in a shorter amount of time. And then also you've got, you know, just drivers being happier with not freezing.
Yeah. So you've talked a lot about how you work with Ford, and you put, you know, your electric chassis into theirs. Can you tell us a little bit about, you know, so like a warranty, or how do you work with Ford so the work that you do for Ford stays under warranty?
Yeah, so the EQVM is a program Ford has that we were the first EQVM because they noticed that we were a very advanced solution. We weren't modifying the chassis in a way that would be detrimental to it at all. And because of that, they gave us EQVM status. Now that means that the chassis warranty is kept intact. We're not just some group out here that's, you know, modifying it and making some Frankenstein that goes out and can't be worked on and Ford dealers run away from it. It is something that anyone, you know, most fleet operators are familiar with and can work on, and Ford has blessed it as well.
So how many of these vehicles has your company done across the country?
We've got about 100 on the road and a backlog of about 200. Orders seem to pretty much double every year.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we've seen, is a doubling every year.
And do you include telematics on the vehicles?
It's an option. So it just depends on what the fleet wants and what they want to get out of it. A lot of times, since vehicles are expensive, you know, people have to think of ways to cut costs. I can tell you a lot of our California fleet, they don't even have air conditioning on them because they don't want to spend it. And actually their normal trucks don't have air conditioning. So they said, you know, let's not put it on these, or drivers will want it on everything. And, you know, their weather is a little bit, you know, drier than ours and better than the humidity we get. But, you know, we have air conditioning on these vehicles too. It's just that sometimes if you're looking to save a little bit of money, you don't put it on. And but I think telematics is a pretty cheap package to add on. I mean, Geotab is who we use, and we're an authorized reseller of Geotab. So if that's something a customer wants, we'll put it on.
And what kind of heater are on these trucks?
So it's a hydronic heater, since there's basically an electric heating unit that heats a tank of coolant, and that coolant pumps through the heater core. On these, there would just be one in the front for the cab. Now, when you're talking about buses, there's, you know, one in the front, one in the rear, and it's a little more impactful on range. But on a vehicle where you're just heating and cooling a cab, that's a small space. It's not very impactful on range. So It's almost a non-issue. I know some people will ask that question. That's usually where that leads. What is, how does it affect range when it's on the road for a while? And it's not that impactful.
So when you do find somebody who has some interest in learning more about this, and then there's this sticker shock, the upfront cost. How do you manage that with them? I mean, I know that with the maintenance and the fuel and all of that, it does come down, but
Yep.
There's still that upfront cost. Is that and if you have a grant, I suppose that helps. But even with the VW grant, that's a reimbursement program, so
Yep.
the companies still have to pay for it up front, and then they get the reimbursement later.
Yeah, so I am in touch with a lot of different dealers in the region, and these dealers each have financing they can offer.
Okay.
So they'll often send off a credit form to the customer and then see what they can do. I think I've had a lot of the FedEx contractors traditionally lease or finance vehicles. So you've got to find a financing solution for a lot of them. And honestly, we're not going to be grant dependent forever. And we're going to have to find a way to finance and offer lease options that are not including any grants. So it's already something we're working on, and dealers are offering, and something that's available. Just, everybody has a different need. I think sometimes people want to pay a little more down so they don't have to finance as much. Sometimes they don't want to pay much down at all and they'll finance more, and
Right.
we can talk about that on a case by case.
Well, I see around in Fairfield County anyway. I mean, if you look at 95, you can just see all of the different fleets that are driving there. You see Encon and different HVAC companies, and a lot of these companies have some pretty large fleets. Maybe 50, sometimes more vehicles. Is there any sort of bulk discount, quantity discount if a company really wants to go large?
When I gave you that price, that's for one. Because most of the time people start with one or a couple and just see how it works, and then they go to buy 10, then 20, then 40. That's kind of what we've seen. So usually I throw out the price of one, but yeah, we can get more competitive on multiples for sure.
So you're saying that companies typically get one as a test to kind of just make sure they're comfortable with it?
A lot of the time, yeah. But I mean, I have seen also where some companies just start at 10 and, maybe with the agreement that if it all goes well, we'll get another 50. And then on that 10, we'd offer some good discounts because we know there's another 50 coming because,
right.
We're not going to fail out there. I actually always say this to my customers that however much you want this to work, we want it more because we have field techs who are right here, local, who are in there checking in all the time just to make sure everything is working well, because we know remotely that everything's working well. We can see that from the diagnostics we do. So
tell us about that. I think we talked once and you were saying you can see ahead of time if the battery's got an issue, or usually before the customer, before the driver.
We usually know something's wrong before the fleet knows it. We've got, we either through Wi-Fi communications or the Geotab unit or just a mobile hotspot we put in it, we are always tracking the logs from the vehicle to know, what kind of range it did in a day, what, the route was like, just general things like how are, the battery checks going. We even had a fleet on our first generation technology. We're now on our 5th generation of the technology, by the way. So this is far from, prototype, small scale builds. This is, we're doing this at quantity and 5th generation at this point. And it's, but in our first generation technology, we had an instance where a battery went down or was acting weird. And we knew it before the fleet did. We got a hold of them. We said, how's your vehicle operating? They said, fine. And we said, well, we're going to take a battery offline because we talked to them, talked about their range, and we had 5 batteries on this setup, and 4 batteries was enough for them to meet their daily route. So they said, okay. And we said, we'll service it, your next service appointment, we'll come in there and we'll swap it out and put a new battery in. So it caused no interruption. I mean, this is a lot different than your traditional gas or diesel where, you know, it just breaks down and you don't expect it. You don't have any notification, you know, Ford or, you know, whoever built the vehicle isn't looking in and checking and making sure it's working right the whole time.
Right.
Whereas we like to brag about how many miles we've got on the road and how good our uptime is. We're at a 99% uptime. And we're at over 1 million miles traveled, which is kind of a lot when you consider that these are small, short planned routes. These aren't trucks going from coast to coast. They're in small little planned routes and communities. So we're pretty happy about how this fifth generation technology is performing, and we're going to make sure that that uptime gets closer and closer to 100%.
Awesome. And so you talked a little bit about when there is service that you have a technician come out. So
Yep.
Out here in Connecticut, what does that look like? Where do you have, where's your service technician? And if somebody does have an issue, how long does it take for someone to get help, and how does all of that work?
So we have one guy right now because and he's in New York City, and he is on site within 24 hours. And as we deploy more vehicles, we hire more technicians. So once we probably hit, I don't know what the magic number is, maybe 10 vehicles or something like that, we'll add another guy. Because right now we've got 6, so we're getting close. And eventually, you know, some of our customers, we just deployed a school bus to a customer in Connecticut who wants to become our service center. So we
Yes.
may have, as it doesn't make sense while they have one vehicle, because any training they wouldn't use often enough to really be proficient. We'd rather have our guy work on it who's doing it all the time. But once they have more vehicles, sure, we'll set them up. We do driver training and maintenance tech training for fleets. So when we deliver a vehicle there, we do the training. But I'll tell you, a lot of it they forget because there's no maintenance. We've talked to some of these fleets like Aramark and asked them, you know, how much maintenance have you done in the 3 years you own these vehicles? They said nothing. We've touched nothing.
Wow.
So, you know, it's hard to, if you would have trained them 3 years ago, it would have too much and kept up on that. It's a waste of time. That's why we like to just have our guys available and send them in.
And then what do you tell companies that are interested in, you know, say they're interested in purchasing these vehicles? How much does the infrastructure cost add to the overall expense?
We're usually putting these into, so I always say you should right size your infrastructure. Like, do it for the application you have and the infrastructure you have currently. Like, so if you are like the highest, we have a high power 15 kilowatt charge capability. So that's a level 2 charge that will actually charge in about 6 to 8 hours roughly from zero. And for most, like 99.9% of our deployments, they're on that because they can charge overnight and, you know, then be ready for the next day, or even some opportunity charging in the middle of the day. And that is pretty cost effective because a charge station we might recommend could be like $1,000, maybe $2,000. And then most people have, if you're putting in one vehicle, most people have 80 amps or, you know, 70 amps. They can install this thing and at least get started with one. It's when you get to talking about multiple vehicles, DC fast charging, that sort of thing, where it can get a little more expensive. But there are ways to offset some of those costs. I think a lot of times DC fast charging isn't required, especially in these FedEx applications where, you know, the route is 50 miles in a whole day. But when you're putting in 10 vehicles in one depot, like Ameripride did, there's charging management software that you can have that will control the charge stations, make sure that you're only maybe powering 3 trucks at any given moment, and prioritize which trucks get charged first. And just because if you have like a 14-hour period, you don't need all of them plugged in and charging instantaneously. So there's ways to talk through it and try to minimize the amount of infrastructure or utility work or anything like that. But, you know, since the vehicles are expensive, we always do our best to help make it as cheap as possible, however that might be.
Is it worth it to just have, you know, let's say a company has, you know, 50 vehicles in their fleet. Is it worth just having one? I mean, one question I think I consider is, you know, looking at their infrastructure before you even sell them one. Do you look at the infrastructure to think, you know, could this scale to 10 or 20? I mean, do you bring in the utilities?
Yeah.
Well, sometimes there's situations where there might be issues with a deeper infrastructure. Potentially that location won't support scaling. And in that case, is it even worth getting one?
No, it's a valid concern. I think you've got to look at the site, and I think usually utilities can put a lot of power in, and I think you can with a DC fast charger, maybe you could shorten the amount of time that each one has to sit on a charger, and then you can maybe run more vehicles through. Maybe a combination of some, you know, there's certainly some sites that may have some limitations. I know in New York City, there's some major limitations, but there's also space limitations. So how many vehicles could you even fit in a given spot? I mean, but I will say, like, with, you know, someone putting in 10 vehicles, you might think that a single DC fast charger is the better solution. But if you start looking at costs, sometimes you find you could put in 10 level 2 stations for the price of that one DC and have, you know, one for each vehicle. And with charging management, you could avoid any kind of like huge power spikes. Yeah, you just got to look at every one. And I would say some vehicles is better than no electric vehicles, right? So some electrics, even if their whole depot couldn't be electrified, you should get as many as you can, because we'll find a way in the future to get more of it electrified. Whether that's putting in solar panels or, I don't know, battery banks or something.
Or something we just don't know about yet that's in
Yeah.
the future. So you had referenced a little earlier what I think of as your greatest success really here in Connecticut, and something that's just fantastic for the whole state, and that's your electric school bus.
Yep.
So last year you were awarded VW funding for in Middletown, right?
Yeah. Yep. And the same customer, the same contractor would like to apply for a lot more in the next round. And like I said, even become a service center. DATCO is the contractor who's running these buses, but they have a real big desire to go electric. They just need to find ways to fund it, of course, because it's a little pricey for them to do it outright, but the grant programs are perfect for someone like them, and their customers want it. They're getting multiple people contacting them. I just went there for deployment of a vehicle and training and everything. We're not doing any press releases of it yet. They wanted to pass DOT. They don't want to insult the DOT inspector before he's had his chance to bless it. It'll be the first.
Bus,
I think it's the first
there?
electric. Yeah, it's the first electric bus in Connecticut. Yeah,
it is the first electric bus in Connecticut.
Yes.
Hero.
And we took everyone for drives and let people drive it, and they loved it. Went out for dinner and talked about, you know, the future. So it's going to be something big in Connecticut. It's just, you know, getting into these fleets and these owners and decision makers and getting them to realize it's a thing. And you know, I wouldn't say take a risk, because there's not much risk especially when you have a grant. I think they paid barely more than they would pay for a conventional vehicle, and you're saving money day one on, you know, fuel and maintenance. So it's kind of a no-brainer.
And that was a Class A school bus?
Yes. Yeah. So a short one for, I think it's for like special education, but I'm not sure. I was trying to get that information about what route they're putting it on, and I don't know. They're like because I told them, the parents are all going to fight over this. They're all going to
Right.
want their kid riding this. So they were like, they never even considered that. I was like, yep, that's what happens. So
Yeah.
you're
Well,
going to have to
that's
get more.
awesome. Yeah, we're everybody's so excited about that electric school bus.
Hmm.
First one in Connecticut. Well, we just can't thank you enough for joining us here today. And there's just so much to be done, but the future is so bright because with companies like yours, it sounds like it's really affordable. The payback is 2 to 5 years. Potentially you don't even need a grant if you get the right vehicle and you have the right application. Charging infrastructure seems like it's definitely doable, and
Hmm.
we really appreciate you being with us here today.
So I realized just now that I did not share my contact information. I had a slide for that. And I don't know, do you mind just sharing that with the group, maybe post-meeting?
Absolutely. When we send
Okay.
out our thank yous to our participants, we are happy to include that information.
Okay.
So
Great.
thank you so much for being a part of our Green Wheels seminar series. We also want to thank our Green Wheels Expo sponsors. We want to be sure that we thank Maritime Chevy, William Levy Architects, Techno, the Electric Vehicle Club of Connecticut, Mo Green, Sustain, Pure, Greater New Haven Clean Cities, Connecticut Southwestern Area Clean Cities, and Live Green for being our Green Wheels Expo sponsors. And tomorrow, be sure and join us to learn about the first steps that municipalities can take to go EV. And then on Friday, we have our site visit at White Plains School District. So thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you so much, Joe Gwin, and have a electric day.
Thank you, Daphne. Thank you,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone. Thank you.